This episode of the EV Resource Podcast is brought to you by Titan Auto and Tire. Titan has some of the very few independent auto repair shops in Central Virginia that are qualified to work on EVs and hybrids. And from hybrids to Hummers, they fix everything. For more information and to schedule an appointment for your vehicle, go to TitanAutoTire.com. Coming up this week, Subaru Solterra is recalled again for the wheels falling off. The Ram 1500 REV debuts. Rivian confirms bi-directional charging is coming, and more. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to episode 141 of the EV Resource Podcast. I'm Zach Hurst, and each week I bring you the latest EV news, information, and interviews with industry experts. This week, I've got 6 stories lined up for you, and half of them turned out to be about EV trucks. Go figure. It's been an exciting week, and I'm super pumped to go over these with you. But before I do that, I have a couple of really quick announcements. As I mentioned last week, I've made a few changes to EV Resource. The magazine has moved to a bi-monthly publication. It will still have all the same great original content, just now it'll be every other month. The first issue of this year, January, February, will be out this week, provided I do not run into anything unexpected. I have started a weekly newsletter that mirrors the content of this podcast with the top news stories of the week delivered directly to your email inbox. So if you like to read in addition to listening, those are both great ways to get the news and information you want. I do have to apologize, however. I only just a minute ago realized after publishing the second week for the EV Resource Weekly newsletter, I just realized that the links didn't work. It was just images. So I'm going to republish this week's and delete everything else. So my apologies on that. I cannot email out another post again for 12 hours due to the settings. And I'm still working with the free model until I make sure this is absolutely the platform I want to use. So it'll have to be emailed tomorrow morning. And in the meantime, if you are curious, the articles are posted on the webpage, so you can always go and check those out there. So there are more ways than ever to keep up with the latest news, especially when we run across something that's really important, like this very first news story about the Subaru Solterra. Subaru didn't reinvent the wheel, but apparently keeping them on the vehicle is proving to be a challenge. The company has issued an urgent safety recall for 1,182 Solterra vehicles, telling owners to stop driving their vehicles immediately. The wheels on the Solterra go round and round and might still fall off. In the middle of 2022, shortly after the start of production for the Solterra and the Toyota BZ4X, and just as a reminder, they are built together as sibling vehicles as a partnership between Subaru and Toyota, a recall was issued because the hub bolts on the wheels may loosen, causing a wheel to detach from the vehicle after low mileage use. It took Toyota and Subaru months to correct the problem, but it was fixed, or so it seemed. Now Subaru is saying the third-party company, which they did not name, that was contracted to conduct the repairs did not properly torque some bolts, which could lead to the wheels loosening and falling off. Owners are urged to stop driving their vehicles immediately and contact their local repair center. Luckily, it seems the problem is much less complicated this time around, and Subaru service centers will be able to inspect and tighten the wheel hub bolts to a proper spec. Owners will not be charged for the repair or the cost of having their vehicle towed to the service center. However, this isn't a good start to the production of the brand's first electric vehicle and is likely to leave a bad taste for some owners. At this time, there is no information that suggests the Toyota BZ4X is affected in the same way. The contractor for Subaru did not conduct the initial repairs for Toyota's vehicles. As with all recalls, Subaru will be contacting current owners to inform them that their vehicle may be affected. In the meantime, owners can visit Subaru's recall website and enter the VIN of their vehicle just to check. That can also be done on NHTSA's website or by calling the Vehicle Safety Hotline at 1-888-327-4236, Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I wanted to start off with this one because if you have a Subaru Solterra or know somebody that has one, do not drive it before getting it checked out. Make sure that if you know somebody, you let them know. This is a serious safety issue. Next, photographers recently captured images of the Polestar 4 as the company was testing the vehicle on public roads in Europe. The fourth model, hence the name Polestar 4, And third all EV offering from the company is being described as an SUV coupe and expected to officially launch later this year. At this point, there are not too many details about the vehicle available yet, but what we know so far is that it will be positioned between the Polestar 2 sedan and the larger Polestar 3 SUV. So it'll have a higher ground clearance than the Polestar 2, but it will be shorter and have smaller interior than the Polestar 3. The small SUV space is inarguably very crowded, but I think the Polestar 4 will do very well against the Kia EV6 GT, the Tesla Model Y Performance, and the upcoming Porsche Macan EV. And according to Autocar, Polestar's boss Thomas Englandlath previously positioned the 4 as the SUV sibling to the 2, but suggested it would offer comparable utility to the larger 3, saying, quote, "This car is slightly smaller than the 3, but we will not compromise much on the interior length. It's slightly more ground-hugging and has a bit more of a coupe-type roofline," end quote. Autocar says the latest internal projections have the Polestar 4 costing between £49,000 and £66,000, which roughly converts to $60,000 to $80,000 US dollars. And that would put the Polestar 4 directly in the gap between the 3 and the 2. The Polestar 4 is expected to start production in China later this year alongside other vehicles from the Geely Group and will share the same PMA1 vehicle platform as the Zeekr 001. The company hasn't released official specifications, but if the Polestar 4 will be anything like other vehicles from the brand, it will likely offer rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive powertrain choices with as much as 546 horsepower in top spec. I cannot wait to see this, get my hands on it, test it, drive it. Volvo and Polestar vehicles have quickly become at the top of my list of favorite EVs to drive. So I really have high expectations for this. And honestly, looking at the pictures, and I know this is an audio podcast, so I'll have the link to the article in the show notes. So definitely go take a look. They have 2 pictures, one from the front, one in the rear. It's all camo, like a light camo. So you can see some body lines and get somewhat of an idea of the shape of the vehicle. To me, it looks very much like the Polestar 2, with the exception of the front end is more rounded. It does sit up a little bit higher, but SUV coupe really, as hard as that term is to wrap your head around, when you look at this, it really is the best way to describe this vehicle. Next, football fans and EV enthusiasts alike are celebrating the official unveiling of the Ram 1500 REV yesterday as the company debuted its first all-electric light-duty pickup truck in a 60-second Super Bowl commercial. Mike Koval Jr., the CEO of Ram brand, said, quote, "The Ram brand has redefined the pickup truck segment before, and we will once again with the all-new Ram 1500 REV. We believe in bringing the right range of powertrain solutions to our customers, and the Ram 1500 REV will be the first in a lineup of electrified solutions that will add to our current award-winning truck lineup. We are on an exciting electrification journey that will see Ram push past the competition in areas customers care about the most: range, payload, towing, and charge time," end quote. The 60-second commercial, titled Premature Electrification, which aired during the fourth quarter of the game, was released across all of Ram's social media channels yesterday before the Super Bowl started. The spot features Emmy-nominated actor Jason Jones as he addresses head-on some potential electrification anxieties that customers may have about purchasing an all-electric vehicle, including, as you might have guessed, range, power, and payload. Oliver Francois, Global Chief Marketing Officer of Stellantis, said, quote, "We created this commercial to speak directly to Ram truck owners and potential truck owners to bring some lighthearted humor to the high-tech EV conversation, which rightfully takes itself very seriously. As we open reservations today for a place in line to pre-order the all-electric Ram 1500 REV, we want to directly address any potential concerns about EV truck ownership using an approach that we believe will resonate with our truck buying customers. The intent of the spot is to let our buyers know that we have listened to their concerns as a part of the dialogue with them over the last several years as we prepare to introduce the all-electric Ram 1500 REV to market in 2024. So as of now, customers can go to REV.com to learn more about the all-new Ram 1500 REV, see the released images, secure their spot to pre-order the vehicle through the REV Insider Plus program, and for a one-time $100 refundable fee, the program unlocks privileges that include a chance to reserve a place in line for pre-order and exclusive access to events, news, and information about the Ram 1500 REV. Specific details regarding production vehicle specifications, production timelines, MSRP, quantities of production, and whatnot are currently not available. Full vehicle features and specifications should become available closer to the pre-order window. The company says pricing will be set by a Ram low-emission vehicle-ready dealer, so we won't exactly know what that looks like quite yet. Ram is one of the last major makes, aside from Toyota and Nissan, like the Japanese ones, to come out with, or at least even start talking about, an all-electric pickup truck. You know, they are not the last to market, but certainly they've had time to have a conversation with potential customers about what they want in a pickup truck that is electric. And based on the conversation that they are having, I am really confident that this is going to be a hit truck. I like the way it looks. Obviously, you can see all of the images. I do have those in an article on the EV Resource webpage as well, so I will have that link in the show notes if you're interested in looking at that, as well as if you haven't seen this commercial. In the article, I have natively posted the premature electrification commercial, just basically showing their YouTube video. So if you're interested in any of that, go ahead, go over to the webpage, click the link in the show notes, and it will bring you to all of that. Next, we're still talking about trucks. I did warn you at the top of the show. This one is the Ford F-150 Lightning, but it's not the production vehicle. You see, Ford is no stranger to making souped-up performance demonstrator vehicles, and it looks like they have made one out of based on the F-150 Lightning EV. Ford recently made an announcement of their comeback to Formula One racing in a partnership with Red Bull Racing starting in 2026. And along with that announcement, they also shared a graphic showcasing how they believe that racing leads to the development of successful consumer products. The graphic contains outlines of several upcoming vehicles that are just silhouettes, including an electric pickup truck demonstrator that is likely based on the F-150 Lightning, new Mustang race cars, and the already disclosed Ranger Raptor. Previous EV performance demonstrator vehicles were the Mustang Cobra Jet 1400. If you remember that, it is, I believe it was an 8-second drag car, purpose-built just to go fast in a straight line for a quarter mile. Then they had the 1400 horsepower 7-motor Mustang Mach-E 1400 prototype. That was after that, and I don't remember exactly when that came out, but I do remember very clearly the Supervan 4 that they took up the Goodwood Festival of Speed hill. It's 1973 horsepower quad motor van. And then the 1978 F100 Illuminator pickup, which they used to showcase their crate electric motor for EV conversions that you can just drop it in. So each one of these has been absolutely ridiculous and spectacular in its own right. And now we think that they are working on an EV demonstrator using the F-150 Lightning. Because aside from that graphic that they released, Jim Farley also took to Twitter to share a photo of himself giving Formula One racing driver Daniel Ricciardo a sneak peek at a vehicle. It is very clearly an F-150 Lightning with some serious modifications. Aside from the visual aspect of paint and some graphics on the front bumper, it's very obviously wide body. You can see the fenders are sticking out further than on the stock vehicle underneath a sheet. So you can't necessarily see the truck as it is. It's just kind of a sneak. But in the back, it looks like there might be a roll bar in the truck bed. And just based on, the past of what they've done with other vehicles, it looks like they're very serious about showing what they could do with an electric vehicle. Details are still obviously very uncertain, including the method that Ford would intend to use for showcasing this, and if any influence or changes or addition to the production version F-150 Lightning would be in the works. I would say if they do release a performance version of the truck, it is going to likely have some crazy numbers to go along with it. Maybe something in the realm of a four-figure horsepower number, 1,000 horsepower or more. Um, it's not unrealistic to think that's possible. You know, they could sell that for $150,000 to $180,000 probably, and sell every single one of them. What one thing is certain, though, is that Ford is very serious about performance, and they want to take that into account when looking at the next generation of vehicles that they're making that are all electric. So we're going to move on to the third truck story. Modern vehicles, especially EVs, come equipped with more and more features that make them seem like rolling computers more than they are vehicles. And automakers are seemingly at war over who can deliver the most quirky features or computer games. I'm looking at you, Tesla. Uh, these features are entertaining for sure, but usually things like being able to play games or watch movies in your car don't serve much of a practical purpose for everyday use. However, some EVs have a very significant capability that outside of the EV world and outside of us, you who are listening and me who is making this podcast, they're overlooked by your average person. And that is the ability for bi-directional charging or vehicle to load capability. This is a feature that, if you're not familiar with it, it allows your electric vehicle to not only charge itself when plugged in like you normally would, but also the power to go out of the vehicle to charge another EV or even your home. And especially your home, like if the power goes out on the grid, you could use the big battery in your vehicle to then provide power for your house for a few hours, or sometimes with as big of batteries as there are, multiple days. So now Rivian has confirmed that they are going to unlock this function in all of its R1T and R1S vehicles, including the ones that have already been sold. In a weekly Rivian Responds Reddit post, Rivian officials claimed, quote, "Yes, we can confirm that all R1T and R1S, including vehicles in customer possession already, will be capable of V2V, vehicle to vehicle, and V2H, vehicle to home, charging. We will share more details on this bi-directional charging capability in the future, but for now can confirm it relies on the CCS standard," end quote. So the R1T and R1S, while they do already have 110 electrical outlets in the truck bed, those outlets are limited by the amount of power they deliver. Yeah, you could probably power a wide range of household appliances and devices from power tools to lighting fixtures or whatever else, but you're not going to be able to power anything significant in your house, like your AC or heat unit, central AC, or your stove or washing machine or anything, those major things. For that, you need to use the CCS charging port. And while normally used to input significant amounts of power into the large battery, the CCS port can also handle output of power. And we already see that in use in a number of electric vehicles like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Ford F-150 Lightning, and others. So while they didn't mention any timeline of when we could expect this to be unlocked, it is a realistic expectation that this will be available eventually, and it will be as simple as a software update because the hardware is already there. So that is something that I'm sure Rivian owners will rejoice about when this is finally a feature that is unlocked. And lastly, for the news segment this week, I wrote an article about the unreliability of EV fast charging stations frustrating EV drivers. And the reason I did this, I actually came across a GD Power report from last year, and then most recently, reporting that is now weekly that was started by Kyle Connor over at Out of Spec Studios. So I'm going to get into both of those things. But ultimately, the point of this is if you drive an electric vehicle and you pull into a public charging station, you just want it to work. However, I am hearing, and so many other people are hearing as well, reports across the country that the failure rate or just the experience overall is, well, the failure rate is high, the experience is low. It's just a bad experience. And some networks are easily worse than others. I don't think it's too much of an expectation. It's not unrealistic to just say, hey, when I plug it in, I want it to start charging and I want it to work. And that's probably because for me personally, I just spent my entire life driving gas powered vehicles. And when you pull up to a gas pump, I don't think I ever had a situation in my entire life where it didn't work. I know that they're not perfect, so I'm sure somebody somewhere, tried to use one and it didn't work. But it's not something that people talk about. We've just grown accustomed to it working for so long. So when it comes to electric vehicles and charging at public fast charging networks, we have the same expectation. It just needs to work. And unfortunately, all too often, it doesn't. In mid 2022, last year, JD Power released their EV charging report, and I think they do this annually. And it outlines many of the problems with public fast charging sites, finding many owners in high EV volume markets like California, Texas, and Washington, for instance, finding that charging infrastructure is inadequate and just plagued with non-functioning stations. And one of the key takeaways from that study indicated that 1 out of every 5 respondents ended up not charging their vehicle during their visit. And of those who didn't charge, 72% indicated that it was due to a station malfunction or a station being out of service. And this is something that I know if you've been an EV owner for a while, provided that you don't have a few that work all the time and that's all you use. Like if you go on road trips, the CCS network is not entirely reliable. Sure, the sites are there, but there is no guarantee that when you pull up, it's going to work. Apps like PlugShare are really good at letting us kind of know, but there are times like if you use Electrify America as an example, and it can on their app say that a site is operational, but then when you get there, it actually doesn't work. And that was something that has been noted many, many times by Kyle Connor of Out of Spec Studios. So the weekly report on the state of charging that they started is called Rate Your Charge. And every Saturday, they send out a newsletter summarizing data from numerous fast charging check-ins from regular EV owners. They are getting currently hundreds of reports, good, bad, or failed, from all around the country showing that the reliability problem with public fast charging networks is not going away. In some cases, you could say it's even getting worse. And in their most recent early report, they highlighted app inaccuracy, saying, quote, "This week, we recorded 55 instances of app inaccuracy. There were 34 instances with Electrify America, 6 with ChargePoint, 5 with Tesla, 3 with EVgo, and as well as 7 from other operators. We even had a check-in where the Electrify America app showed the CHAdeMO charger online, but it was actually not functional. App inaccuracies from Electrify America are especially concerning this week. We reported many instances of chargers displaying as available in the app, but were actually offline or unavailable. We also recorded instances of chargers claiming to be plugged in when there is no vehicle, meaning that the station is effectively unavailable. We recorded instances of communication and initialization errors, as well as chargers that abruptly stopped just a few minutes into a charging session," end quote. And of all of those problems, I have personally seen examples of that happening. It hasn't happened to me, but if I'm at a charging station, I have seen that happen to other people and in conversations that I've had with people. And it is very frustrating. As an EV owner, you just want it to work. Now, most people charge overnight at home. They're not using the public network. And if you do, you might have found a few that you like that you use regularly that have always worked for you. So despite the many advantages of owning an EV, it seems like using public fast charging stations have more of an opportunity to be a source of disappointment. It is not acceptable that the continued investments and improvements to the infrastructure in terms of building out more sites is going on without a similar approach in terms of the amount of effort to go into maintaining a public charging network. We need to have them on a maintenance schedule and really have people checking these on a regular basis. And currently, at least from what I know about the people that I've talked with who actually work at public networks, they tell me that the effort isn't there. In fact, that some sites are being commissioned and without the charger units actually working, or not all of them working, where you might have half of them working, half don't, when it's brand new. And that's basically because charging networks want to get a lot of money from the federal government for their the money that's out there for building out charging networks. So they can get money for building a site, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't like there's no qualification that all of the chargers need to be operational when they open and approve the site for use. It is a much, much bigger problem than a lot of people realize. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to highlight not only this issue, but also the Rate Your Charge report weekly that Out of Spec is doing. If you have an experience with a fast charger, good, bad, or otherwise, and naturally most of the reports are going to be bad or failed. But even if you have a good charging session, I really would encourage you to look up the Google form for the Rate Your Charge reporting, or go to @RateYourCharge on Twitter, and they do require a photo or a video to confirm the problem. So you can't just make something up if it's not actually happening. So I love that. They're really, really serious about making this a credible report of information. So definitely would encourage you guys to do that. And hopefully we will see more competition from charging networks, and they will be incentivized to have a really good uptime, like 90% or more. Notably, the best rated charging network, both on the Rate Your Charge reports from the last 2 weeks when they started that, as well as the EV charging report from JD Power annually, Tesla. The Tesla Supercharger network is at the top of the list. So I think that really highlights a big, big deal that Tesla cares. They want their charging network to work. Right now, it's one of the biggest advantages of owning a Tesla vehicle is being able to use the supercharger network. I imagine when they open that up and let CCS cars have access to the supercharger network, that the network reliability is something that will likely get dinged, because now they have to make it work with every EV, not just their own. And that's one of the biggest issues with public charging networks to begin with, is they have to make it work with every single EV from every make. And that is not easy. So I don't mean to be hard on them. I do have high expectations, as I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect that. But I also recognize that it's not an easy problem to solve, especially considering how they have built the back end of the process of being able to work through problems like this. I've had talks with technicians that they've shared with me details I can't share publicly, but just know that I don't know if crap show is the right way of putting it, but it's not an easy problem to solve. Okay, so that is it for the news segment. But of course, there is a lot more to come in the podcast episode, including the question of the week, which we'll take care of right after this.
Do you own a business and want to reach EV owners and people interested in electric vehicles? EV Resource is welcoming businesses nationwide, both big and small, to become advertising partners with us across all platforms. The EV Resource podcast, magazine, YouTube videos, social media, and our webpage. For more information, please email Zach at hello@ev-resource.com.
Okay, before we get to the question of the week, I wanted to let you all know that I'm going to be interviewing this coming Friday, the 17th, Michael Benson from the Command Consulting Group. He is a former fire chief and focuses on consulting with municipalities to electrify their fleets and develop microgrids with integrated EV charging. As you can guess, the topic of the conversation will be about electrifying municipal fleets with the incorporation of microgrids and on-site battery storage with EV charging. I bring this up because I want to include questions from you all, the audience, to ask Mr. Benson. I'm going to have my own list, of course, but I really want to give him a chance to field questions directly from you. So if you have a question that would be applicable, please email that to me at hello@ev-resource.com so I can be sure to include that in the conversation. Okay, so now to our question of the week. Last week, we were talking about the Hyundai Ioniq 6 and its somewhat polarizing body design and styling, specifically about the rear end. And responses were varied. While 60% of poll respondents said that they liked the rear end and 40% said they did not, the comments are what I found to be most interesting. Rajeev Narayan thought that Hyundai ended up with a design that looked too much like the rear of some common Porsche vehicles, but that Porsche does it better. He said, quote, "I don't like it, and furthermore, I dislike the styling of the front even more," end quote. He preferred the styling of the concept vehicle that the Ioniq 6 was based on. John Hurst doesn't feel like it looks enough like a Porsche. The rear end of the car is fine on its own, but doesn't match the rest of the vehicle design. Charles Hall said, quote, "I feel like a sedan needs distinctive styling, especially in this price range," end quote. He admires the designers taking a few chances with this car design. Andy Cooper said the styling has grown on him and he likes it now, but he didn't at first. And we did get some Facebook comments as well. Sarah Louise says she loves it. It has Porsche vibes. Matt Leonardo says he liked the last version better, and I'm assuming he was referring to maybe the Ioniq 5. Ron Suzuki thinks it's hot. Ariana Chelsea said she thinks it looks like a mix between the Porsche and an Infiniti J30. And Pat Gavin says it looks like a Porsche Panamera copy. So while some of you liked it and some didn't, it seems that everyone agrees that it looks like a Porsche, which is interesting because the thought didn't cross my mind at all until you all brought it up. So obviously I missed something there. But yeah, now that you guys mentioned this, it does look very similar to like a Porsche 911 or, like Pat said, a Panamera, in the back anyway. The rest of the car, not so much. So that's interesting. And maybe people who like Porsches will consider buying one of these. The question I have for you this week is related to the last article about the reliability of fast charging networks. It's going to be a tough one. So here we are. Are you satisfied with the public fast charging experiences you've had? And have you experienced any concerns or challenges? As always, I'll have the question up on the EV Resource Patreon page that is located at patreon.com/EVResource. And Patreon is spelled Patreon for those of you who don't know. Participation is available to everyone. You do not have to be a Patreon supporter in order to vote in the poll or leave a comment. And I look forward to your responses and hearing about your experiences with the public DC fast charging networks. Next, we have the EV Resource Hotline segment. This is your chance to be featured on the podcast. All you have to do is call in and leave me your EV question, comment, or discussion topic. It's super easy to do this. Simply use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software, record your message, and do please try to keep it to 90 seconds or less. And then email that file to me at hello@ev-resource.com. This week, again, we don't have anyone that called in. So if you have a question, comment, or discussion topic that you want to have featured in a future episode, go ahead and send that in to me. And I am not going to abandon this segment. I really, really like the idea, and I'm going to keep talking about it with hopes that eventually it will catch on. And before I end the episode, I want to thank our Patreon supporters. These individuals have chosen to support my efforts here with a small monthly financial contribution, and in return, get many perks and benefits of being part of this exclusive club. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while and feel like I've earned your support as well, I'd encourage you to go to the Patreon page and consider joining. Tiers start at only $5 a month, and I know people that spend more than that each day on a cup of coffee. So $5 a month, that's not bad, and I would really appreciate it. For the first quarter of this year, all Patreon supporters, new and existing, will get a 30-minute one-on-one Zoom call with me to talk about everything they want, anything they want, I should say, anything at all, and it doesn't even need to be EV related. This is just my way of reaching out to connect with those people that I'm very grateful for their support. I'm going to start scheduling next month in March. So I'm going to fill the month of March with a bunch of conversations with you all, and I am really looking forward to that. As always, I want to thank our Patreon supporters that do get their name read out in each podcast episode. They are Rajeev Narayan at the director tier, Christopher Lawrence, and Andy Cooper at the executive producer tier. And of course, thank you to all of the fine people who choose to support me and EV Resource. If you don't feel quite up to contributing via Patreon, there are a couple other ways that you can help. Instead of mandatory membership fees or paywalls, I use advertising and affiliate connections to keep the EV Resource podcast, magazine, and newsletter free for all of you. So please consider supporting those who have made this possible. The partners and sponsors, they definitely have made this happen. You can find a full listing of all of these great organizations and coupon codes and deals at ev-resource.com/deals. I am also an Amazon affiliate, and I have on the webpage a growing collection of products on Amazon that I would recommend. You can find that on the webpage under the shop section. And if you are looking there and you want to buy something on Amazon, but it's not listed, let me know. I can send you a very specific link that you can then use, and I will get credit for that. And then you can buy whatever you were going to buy anyway. So that is definitely something I'm excited about, opening that up. And I have added a lot more products and kind of revamped that whole section. So I definitely would encourage you guys to check that out. It is ev-resource.com/shop. As always, I invite your feedback via email to hello@ev-resource.com. And that will end it for this podcast episode. So thank you so much for being with me, and I will catch you next week.